Couple more minutes and we'll start. Let's give people an opportunity to start coming in.
Sure thing.
As a reminder, we're recording and we are also live streaming to Facebook. All right, we're going to go ahead and start. Hi, friends. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for tonight's virtual event, Enslaved to Entrepreneur, How Wilson Pottery's Innovation and Industry created a Lasting Legacy. I'm Tracy Anderson, Finance Manager for the Friends of the Texas Historical Commission. We are so glad you've tuned in with us tonight, and we encourage you to get to know more about us. We're the nonprofit partner to the Texas Historical Commission, providing support for historic preservation efforts across the state. And you can get involved by visiting the What We Do page on our website at thcfriends.org. We want to thank those of you who have chosen to support us with donations through these events. We are very grateful for your support. And I want to acknowledge any THC commissioners, Friends board members, and our colleagues at the Texas Historical Commission who are with us tonight. We're so happy to see all of you here. If you haven't already, please follow us on social media. We'd love to connect with you. It's also a great way to find out about future events and programming, like our upcoming virtual event on March 20th, All the Bells and Whistles, How Texas Women Turned Homecoming Moms into a Lone Star Phenomenon. A few housekeeping items before I introduce tonight's presenter. I'm running this solo this evening, so please excuse any glitches that may occur. I do appreciate it if you keep your microphones on mute. There will be a Q&A at the end of the presentation, and you are welcome to put questions in the chat box. We will answer as many of them as we have time to get to. We are recording tonight's event, and those that are registered using an email address will be provided with a link to that recording tomorrow. Please feel free to share that with friends that were unable to join us tonight. And I will also provide a list of resources, website links, book recommendations, or anything of that nature that our presenter may mention in the chat and in the email. Sorry, there's one of those glitches. It is now my privilege to introduce Paula King Harper, board chair of the Wilson Pottery Foundation and fifth generation descendant of Hiram Wilson. Welcome, Paula.
Hi, Tracy. Thank you so much for having us. We are excited to be with you, even virtually. If I could, I'm going to go ahead and begin the presentation. I'm going to share my screen. Thank you all for joining and being in with us, and even those who may be watching on the replay. We are happy that you are here. One second. Okay. Like Tracy, I'm flying solo too, so thanks for bearing with us. So Hiram and James Wilson arrived as enslaved brothers from Missouri with Reverend John McCamey Wilson, who was a white Presbyterian minister, educator, and slave owner who departed Morgantown, Burke County, North Carolina, and headed west. He and his family and a complement of slaves, including James and Hiram, would settle in Fulton, Missouri, and then migrate to Texas. We're not really sure why he left Missouri. Maybe it was because it was considered frontier territory and he envisioned a new beginning for himself and his family. Perhaps it was because under the Missouri Compromise, Missouri had been admitted into the Union as a slave state, and other slave owners from the South had begun to migrate there. Or maybe he wanted to contribute to furthering the Presbyterian presence in the territory, as he did establish a seminary and a school for women while he was there. I'm going to share this timeline, and I will just share some information as you take your time and look over the timeline. The Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854 nullified the provisions of the Missouri Compromise, and skirmishes and violence immediately erupted in Kansas between pro-slavery and anti-slavery settlers. The unrest spilled across the border into Missouri, and a peaceful existence for slave owners in Missouri was placed in serious jeopardy. Reverend Wilson, quite possibly seeing that his own well-being as a slave owner was becoming more uncomfortable, left Missouri in 1856 and arrived in Texas. He and his family and his slaves settled in or near Capote in Guadalupe County, and then is what is now known as a rural community about 11 miles east of the city of Seguin. As big as Texas was, we still don't know why Reverend Wilson settled there. Did he have advanced information about the area? Did he know someone that already lived there? Or were there other reasons? In the 1800s, the vast majority of Americans lived in rural areas, and this was especially true in the southern states. Rural families were self-reliant in that they produced their own food by raising livestock and growing crops. These families needed a way to store and preserve grains, breads, meats, liquids, and the like in containers that were handy for daily use as well as long-term usage. Many families use stoneware pottery vessels for this purpose. Pottery making has been an integral part of human civilization for thousands of years. Native Americans were pottery makers before the arrival of the European settlers. Like many other things, the technique of producing pottery from the clay soil evolved over the centuries, and the use of kilns and glazes was a part of the evolution. When Reverend Wilson was growing up in North Carolina, earthenware pottery was made at several locations across the state, including Seagrove, that was not far from his birthplace in Mecklenburg County. However, the epicenter for pottery slavery was Edgefield. So we see here in 1856 to 1859, Guadalupe Pottery Company was established, which was known as the first site and run by Reverend John McCamey Wilson, who incorporated his slaves to make pottery and taught them the art of pottery making. We are not quite sure exactly who taught them how to make pottery, but there have been some theories that John Chandler or maybe Marion Durham taught his John McCamey slaves how to make pottery. What we do know, though, is that after emancipation, Guadalupe Pottery closed, and 2 years later, in 1869, H. Wilson and Company was established with Hiram at the helm and James as known as the master potter, who made pottery there, and this is known as the second site. We also know that when Hiram passed, James went into business with Durham and Chandler, creating the third site known as the Durham-Chandler-Wilson site. We'll get a little further into some other details, but I wanted to share some of this information from the timeline. There are very few documents. You have to kind of dig for some of history, but I wanted to share this piece that was discovered in February 1863. So interesting that I'm sharing it during this month. There was a document discovered where the mentioning and leasing of an enslaved woman named Jenny, who was around 20 years old, occurred for the amount of $150 for the remainder of the year of 1863. The transaction listed in the Guadalupe Slave Book says that the hirer was Reverend J.M. Wilson. And there is the document. We also have the 1870 census, a page from that, which shows that Durham and Isaac Suttles were in Guadalupe County, along with James and Hiram's wife. Again, we're not really sure who taught them how to make pottery, but we do know that there were some other wonderful pottery makers in that era in the Seguin area at that time. As a preacher, I found this document quite exciting. Guadalupe Baptist Association, if you've never heard of it, was very alive and well. Matter of fact, Guadalupe College was established there in Seguin, and Hiram and Reverend Isley and Reverend W.B. Ball were all instrumental in the establishment of Guadalupe College. But this document, dated in 1882, shows that the congregations totaled up to about 250 wagons and about 300 saddle ponies at a meeting. Can you just imagine arriving at an event and having this many individuals there, and people were that excited to celebrate and be together? And here it is, the 21st century, and we have our smartphones and we won't even get out of bed. I know, just a little preacher pun right there. So here are these pottery sites that I mentioned before. Let me see, let me move there we go. So this is one site listed there. There is the second site. And there is the third site. So H. Wilson and Company pottery is very well known, and it is highly collectible. The craftsmanship of this crockware is amazing. And you can see there the stamp on both of these pieces, H. Wilson and Company. We're not sure how Hiram came up with the brand or the idea to trademark his work, he and James's business, but he did. And this signifies them as the first Black entrepreneurs in Texas after emancipation. We have not come across any other enterprises where pottery was trademarked. There's a salt glaze that's unremarkable there, as well as the orange peel. You have to become aware of the style of H. Wilson pottery, the ovoid shape here, the curve there on the vessels, some that do go straight up and down, but is the curve. There is the slip there on the interior, which runs all the way through. I wish we could look inside these and see these vessels. And then there are some curves on the bottom. We've been asked, how do you know if it's not stamped? How do you know that it's an H. Wilson? Or from which pottery site a piece may have come from? Sometimes it's hard to tell, but sometimes the salt glaze identifies it. Sometimes it's the orange peel. Sometimes it's the curve around the lip, or sometimes it's the slip, the interior. But the craftsmanship is remarkable. And there on the interior, you can see just about right there where the ridge of the lid would have sat. Along with the identification mark of the H. Wilson and Company, Wilson pottery was also known for its unique rim design, as well as a horseshoe-shaped handle instead of the well-established crescent-shaped handle for heavier vessels. And this is an H. Wilson. You can see there the stamp, it's barely visible there, but the usage was remarkable for this pot. And we're not sure what those stains are, but it was definitely loved and it was used. And the tie-down wire still exists around the top of this. And this is a 3-gallon. You can see there the 3 stamped. Most pieces that were above a 2-gallon, I would say, I've seen stamps from 3 and up that identify the size gallon of the vessel. So we've talked a lot about Hiram, but James was also known as the master potter. I don't have a lot of documentation to provide on James, but we do know that Hiram was establishing churches and schools, and we believe that James was running the pottery site for a large portion. And these are some other H. Wilson pieces. Look at that glaze and that shine. And there's the stamp. So Hiram also established Capote Church in 1872, The original building still stands, and there is an additional building that has been added. The church still holds worship service. He also established Capote Cemetery, which is a beautiful place of resting for the family and the community. He said he wanted three things, the family to have three things: a place to worship, a place to be laid to rest, and a place to be educated. And there wasn't a schoolhouse called Capote Schoolhouse. It no longer is standing, but Hiram was established that as well. And James and his family were instrumental in establishing the Capote Cemetery Association, which I'll talk more about shortly. So Richard Kins was stumbling around the third site when he noticed them, unbeknownst to us, that it was the third site, and he came across some shards and sought the family to gain permission to begin an excavation. And this is Richard Kins sitting inside the kiln that he began to excavate. And so upon his stumbling and finding those shards and beginning the excavation, that is how Wilson Pottery Foundation was established in 1999 by Laverne Britt. She was predominantly instrumental in establishing the foundation with support of the family. And there she is with John St. Clair, one of our avid pottery collectors. And this was at one of the pottery shows, the very first pottery shows, which was also launched by Richard Kins. At that time, it was called the South Texas Collectors Pottery Show. Since Richard launched the pottery show, I joined in with him about the second year and also became a board member. And I am now the coordinator of the pottery show, which is now known as the Wilson Pottery Show. This was the Beehive Kiln excavation in 2002, a photo from the excavation site. Richard he did some very diligent work, and you can see the chimneys, and this is actually the salt glaze. This photo does not reveal that, but there were bricks from within the chimneys where you could actually see the salt glaze, and we actually mounted those bricks and sold them for a fundraiser to help support the foundation as we were just getting established. However, due to erosion and lots of rain in the spring of 2003, we consulted with the Texas Historical Commission, and they suggested that we backfill the excavation site because we did not have funding to erect a building to actually protect the excavation site from further erosion, rain, wind, you name it. So here we have some family members along with the THC staff as we were cataloging and archiving shards. And this is a photo of the backfilling, the beginning of the backfilling team. We are all Wilson descendants. That's Shirley Anderson, myself. Shirley is a James descendant. Me and myself as a Hiram descendant. There is Carolyn Wilson as a Hiram descendant. Joe Reed, the late Joe Reed, as a Hiram descendant. Cleo Graves, and the late Laverne Britt. And we tossed the first shovels for the backfilling. It was a sad day, but it was also a joyous occasion. We were thankful for the opportunity to experience that excavation moment. So where can you find Wilson Pottery? If you ever come across an advertisement for a pottery show anywhere in Texas, I encourage you to go and just look. But we can be found in the Museum of Fine Arts, Houston. And I just want to ask this question. Can you imagine carrying this 5-gallon vessel empty to the river and collecting water and then carrying it back 5 gallons full? This was utilitarian. This was the smart fridge of the 1800s. They used crocks for everything, whether it's water or they created butter churns. There are even chicken feeders that are made out of ceramics. But I have heard stories where they actually took maybe like a 5 gallon and used it to layer, whether it was meat on the bottom and then some other type of material in the middle and something else on top to help protect it, and then sat the 5 gallon down in the river bottom on the edge where to keep everything cool. They use crocks for everything. And there's your jug, a nice, looks like about maybe a 2 gallon jug there. And there's that original first sight shape and style of the handle. So I would imagine that's a first sight right there. We also have pieces in the Bayou Bend collection and gardens. As you can see, this is definitely a first sight. And this is the reason why Hiram noticed that these handles would break off easily due to weight. And so this is second sight. This is before he refined the shape and created the horseshoe handle. So you can just see as the time went on, he and James mastered the style and safety for the usage of the pottery. There are also pieces in the Smithsonian Museum, the Bob Bullock Museum, the Institute of Texan Cultures here in San Antonio, the Whitty Museum, and others. So we are keeping the family legacy alive. The family Hiram and James and Wallace reunion is held every 3 years. We'll be gathering together again in 2026. They're in Seguin. It's always held in Seguin. We believe in keeping the reunion close to home. We have a baby blessing every reunion for any children born since the last reunion, and we have clergy staff to bless the babies. We gather together also for our traditional panoramic photo, and it's just fun watching everybody climb the risers and want to be close to each other and debate about who's taller and who needs to be in the front. And it's just fun just watching the planning come together for the panoramic photo. We have a flag raising ceremony on the Saturday of the reunion there at Capote at the cemetery. And then we have meals together those for a 3-day weekend. We still host the pottery show every October as part of Seguin's Pecan Fest Heritage Days. And in 2022, Catherine Ford, who is a John McCamey Wilson descendant, had already reached out to me, and we knew that she was coming to the pottery show. But what we were not aware of was that this 6 gallon first sight piece had been identified by a collector who purchased it, and it was being delivered at the pottery show. A lot of that happens. They barter with one another. They find stuff across the state, and they say, "Okay, well, I'll meet you at such and such pottery show, and we'll do the exchange there or whatever." And so this exchange was happening, unbeknownst to us. The timing was just marvelous. So there you have a first sight generation and second sight generation all together. Hiram and James and Reverend John McCamey Wilson. We were so honored to all be able to touch that vessel where it all began, and for us to all be there was just unexplainable. The emotion that was happening there on the site that day. You never know what's going to happen at a pottery show. There's always something wonderful. So Catherine had already come prepared to donate this handle that you see there. That's Ken Smith, one of our board members, and he was comparing it to one of the Museum Fine Art Houston posters that we have, and noticing that it was an exact replica of the photo. It was just amazing. It was a wonderful day. So we do have a museum there in Seguin as well, which launched in 2013. We're in partnership with the city of Seguin, and we are housed there in the historic Sebastopol House. And we're so thankful to be there and to be able to share our history and our story and the legacy of Hiram and James, along with some of the other wonderful histories that are shared there within the house, because it is one of the few remaining limestone Texas buildings there in Seguin. Here we have the Texas State University students with Joe Reed and Laverne Britt at our opening. They were very helpful and instrumental in us getting everything in place. These are photos from the opening mixer of the museum. There's Mayor Don Kyle at the time, and some Wilson family participants. We also have an annual gala. It used to be in the spring, but this year we're trying something different. We are partnering with the city for a wonderful weekend of Juneteenth celebration. We have the annual Potters Awards that we always award family members as well as community members for their support in the community, not just in Seguin, but maybe it's in their home city, whatever the recognition is for, just for the community, supporting your community and being involved in what your community is doing, being a potter, being creative, and sharing your own legacy and your own history and your own creativity. Other photos of the gala. Last year, we were so thrilled to host our first Future Pioneer Awards. So we had nominees, and those are the children that got awarded the first Future Pioneer Awards. And there are also our Potters Award winners as well. We were thrilled to have Lawrence Sampleton, former Philadelphia Eagles, who also grew up in Seguin, to present the children with their award. It was a really wonderful night. So we are still keeping the legacy alive. And this is Cherie Inman. She is the president of the Capote Cemetery Association, a James descendant. We have Willie Applewhite Jr., who was the president of the Hiram, James, and Wallace Wilson Family Reunion. And then myself as the president of Wilson Pottery Foundation. So we would like to invite you to come on out this June 14th to our gala and celebrate with us and have a wonderful time. This is a fundraiser to help keep the museum functioning, and we have a goal of purchasing our own signature H. Wilson and Company piece. We have several pieces in the museum, of course, but we don't have a stamped H. Wilson and Company. We have some that are on loan and displayed in the museum, but this is our goal this year to achieve acquiring our own as a foundation, stamped H. Wilson and Company. So we hope that you'll come on out and support us. These are our board members who, this is election year, so come on and join, become a member of the foundation, and be able to help us move forward. Thank you for your time. So we are now ready for questions and answers, Tracy.
Yes. We have some. When is the Wilson Pottery Show in 2025?
That is Saturday, October 5th. I had to look just to be sure. October 25th. It will be from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. there in Seguin.
Cindy Ambergery is asking, is there information available regarding the program? I'm not quite sure what she is referring to. Cindy, could you drop in chat what you mean by that? Oh, this is actually a question I was wondering myself. Why the purple shirts at your reunions?
Okay, so each year we have someone design a shirt, and so it could be a different color, there's a different design. Each year there is a specific theme and color. So that year the shirt happened to be purple and it had a theme.
Betsy would like to know what some of the best written resources you have had for your research have been.
I would definitely encourage everyone to purchase In Praise of Hiram, which is written by Laverne Britt. She did a lot of research. We do have that available on our website at www.wilsonpotteryfoundation.org. Okay, that tells a lot of documented history that she has actually done the research going to the courthouse, finding documents and instruments that actually prove what's being said. Um, if you are looking for literature or books on how to, oh, let me not forget Georgianne Greer. Georgianne Greer created a piece, I think it was her dissertation or a master's document. I think it's from the 70s, though. You might have to do a little legwork to find that. But that's also a very good document and has some recorded interviews from people in that time, which is very good. If you are looking for a document or a book to help identify pieces, Dale Ross published a book called Texas Pottery, and he has hundreds of photos to help identify if you don't have that detailed eye on, say you have a piece and you're trying to figure out what is it because it's not stamped and you don't have a clue of what you have. We actually have a vetting team as well with Wilson Pottery Foundation. And so you can send us photos of your item, or you can come to a pottery show. And if you let us know in advance, the vetting team can do their best to be there to have hands-on look at the piece, or you can send us photos and we would forward those to the vetting committee and they would share what they think the article is.
Cool. Christine Crosby would just like to let everyone know that she did grow up in Seguin, and her mother grew up on Capote Road, not far from the church.
Awesome. Awesome.
And a follow-up question, what is the history of that name? Do you have any idea about that?
About Capote?
Yes.
No. Sorry, I don't have I don't have the history of how that name got established.
As a follow-up, Cindy was asking if there would be a formal write-up on this presentation. Cindy, you may have joined late. This is being recorded, and tomorrow we will be sending out an email with a link to the recording and any other information Paula is able to provide, I'll include. Oh, okay. Were there any other brothers of Hiram and James that you were aware of, and who were Hiram and James married to?
So Hiram was married twice. Let me start that way. I know his last wife's name was Senia, Senia. They call her Grandma Senie, though. That's what some of our older cousins have informed us. And there were other enslaved brothers, Wallace, George, Thomas. There were quite a few. I want to say 13.
Large family. Not that uncommon in the times. The Potters Isaac and George Washington Suttles came from White Cottage, Ohio, and were the sons of a potter, Benjamin Suttles. And there is an exhibit of Suttles pottery in Livonia. That's from Elaine Mazurek Stevens, who would also like to thank you for all of your research and work.
Thank you. Thank you, Elaine. And you are correct.
At these pottery shows, typically how far away are these pots coming from? So when someone brings one of the pots to a show, are they bringing them from all over the country?
They're Texas, just as far as I know. I haven't had anyone to attend from outside of Texas yet. And where they are acquiring their pottery, we don't always have that information where they got certain pieces from. Some are open to share. You know, they found things in a barn. Someone was having a yard sale, or the family was letting go of the family farm and they allowed folks to come through the family farm, and things have been found underground or in the back of a corner. I mean, we've heard all kinds of stories, yard sales, antique stores, you know, so, just if you're looking for for a piece, I just say I would encourage you to first do a little background on what it is you're actually looking for, because not every piece is going to be stamped, or not every piece is going to have the number on it to kind of jar you, to make you realize, oh, this might be a blank, whether it's Soto's or whether it's Myers or whether it's Wilson. But there were other potters in that era at during that same time. And so their pieces are just as prominent as Wilson to me. They're all special.
This is a good question. I was wondering this myself. Any idea where they were getting the clay from? Did they set up their kilns where there were already clay deposits?
Yeah, so Salt Creek runs right through the third pottery site. And so we are believing that they got a lot of the clay right there from Salt Creek. And also not very far was the Guadalupe River. They had to do a little walking, but I mean, that everything was done by walking. So for them, it probably was nothing, right? And so the clay was right there in the area. How they knew it was there, I don't know. Maybe because the river ran through, or the creek was close by, and they figured that it would be great. But if you've never been out to Capote or dug a post hole in Capote, because we have farmland out there, there's this rich red clay, and it's so thick, and yeah, it's amazing that they were able to make pottery out of this. It's just a wonderful.
So Deborah would like to know, does the foundation, the actual Wilson Pottery Foundation, do you go and search out pieces, like go to antique stores or acquire any pieces that way?
Yeah, I have. I have actually, spent a little time. Don't have a lot of time to do it, but I have spent some time looking around, trying to find something. And I have yet to find anything, but we have heard stories. So if you're ever out of town, somewhere not common where you've gone, and you run into an antique store, I would encourage you to just go in and look around. You never know what could be sitting there, what treasure might be sitting right in front of you.
I actually have a question that came to me when you were speaking. You described the orange peel. I've actually seen some of the pottery at Sebastopol House. Can you describe to everyone what you mean by that orange peel?
So I'm sorry, I looked away because I have a jug over there. So it's like a pitting on the skin, and of not the skin, but on the jar, and it looks like an orange peel, but it's not orange. It's just the pitting that looks like orange peel skin on the actual glaze of the crock. And how that is done, I have no clue, how these things were made. It's just amazing.
So do we have any other questions for Paula today? I'm getting a lot of comments of what a wonderful story you're telling. See.
I was trying to send some comments, but I don't know that they went through.
Well, I haven't been reading all of the comments. I've mostly been reading the questions, but let me see. Scott.
I had one question about it. How do you tell if it's a Wilson pottery if there's not a stamp?
That's a good question.
Right, right. And so this comes from a trained eye, and my eye is not quite that trained yet. I am working on it, but it comes from being able to identify the glaze, okay, the shape, the color even is important, because that stone white color, we don't have that kind of clay. We didn't have that kind of clay in that era, in that time. So just being able to notice color, shape, glaze, the interior, even the bottom, all of these things are important. The lip, the top piece, all of these are ways to help identify what something is, but you must have a trained eye.
And I had one more comment. I worked for the museum in New Braunfels in Sophienberg, and we interviewed Joe Reed in 2017. and we have his oral history on record in the museum. And when
Awesome.
I saw this webinar, I was like, I was there for that. I remember this.
Oh,
And
awesome.
so I looked it up. And so if anybody needs information on that or wants a copy of it, feel free to contact us because it was fascinating. Just like this presentation, both of them fascinating.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
And Paula, can you talk a little bit about when we were speaking on the phone the other day, you mentioned that Sebastopol House had a grand reopening. Do you want to speak to them about
Yes,
where they can
yes,
go?
yes.
Hopefully somewhat close. It's close for us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Tracy. So the Sebastopol House was closed for a few months. They uh, laid new steps and the opening part of the veranda. And so it took some time because it's a historic building. So there was specialized wood that was required to complete the task. And it is now reopened a couple of weeks ago. So you can visit 704 Zorn Street and take a tour of the Sebastopol House as well as Wilson Pottery Museum. There is a guided tour with a museum guide whose name is Bob. He's wonderful. Tours are done on the hour, starting at 9 and they end at 4. And I believe he's closed from 12 to 1 for lunch or 12 to 12:30 for lunch. So please visit Wilson Pottery Museum. It's free entry. There's a donation box there if you'd like to place a donation when you get inside, but it's free entry. Take the kids down, take your family down and come and see what's inside. There's more than just pottery to see, and there's so much to learn there and to see the building itself. It's a beautiful, beautiful limestone building.
Do you have any other questions for Paula tonight? Let's see. Kent wants you to know this was a fabulous presentation. Thank you for this, and thank you for your dedication to these artists.
Thank you.
And yes, Robin points out the Sebastopol House is made out of limecrete, which is a topic that could be an entire other virtual presentation. And Lady Jazz said that the information you gave has provided her insight into a family legacy.
Wonderful.
So everyone is very complimentary about your presentation today.
Thank you, everyone, for your such kind comments. And please visit wilsonpotteryfoundation.org. Get your gala tickets early. And make plans to come spend Juneteenth with us. We look forward to spending time with you and continuing to share our legacy. Thank you. Oh, so I see Capote Indians. That's where the name came from, but I need to do some. I need to know that I will do a little research there, so I can answer that question in the future myself. Yeah, but that's what someone is sharing. Thank you.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us this evening. Again, if you registered using your email address for the presentation, you will be sent an email link tomorrow to the recording, and I will gather some other information from Paula. And we have dropped the URL for wilsonpotteryfoundation.org into the chat.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, everyone, for being part of this wonderful Thursday evening. Stay warm.
Yes, stay very warm. All right, good night, and thank you for having joined us. And Paula, if you just want to stay on for a second after everyone drops off.